Welcome, beautiful souls, to Practicing Life podcast. I'm Ashley Pitzer. So, I'm talking about gratitude is the attitude, or is it? Do you struggle with gratitude? Does gratitude not feel authentic to you or real to you? Because the thing about it is gratitude is one of those things that you hear everybody talking about. You possibly feel internally that it's something that you can see the rewards on. Like research is done out there, and not that just because research is done on it makes it true or valid or believable to you. But what we do know is that gratitude is associated or linked with like improved health, mentally, emotionally, physically, improved sleep. We know that when you feel, notice the word feel, I'm stressing the word feel. When you feel gratitude, there is serotonin and dopamine that is released in your brain. And when that is released, when you have a neurotransmitter dopamine release, which is what happens when you feel gratitude, it puts your brain in a learning state. And so in a learning state, then this in turn increases your capabilities, whatever that may be that you're learning at the time, right? So we know that there's so many positive things associated with it, of self-awareness, better relationships, just your overall well-being. So there's that aspect of it. And maybe that makes you feel pressured to have gratitude, or possibly maybe that puts you into the place of feeling like you should. And should comes out of duty and obligation. And that is associated with the feelings that are negative. So let's go with feelings for a second, because that's really, really important in today's subject on gratitude. Because your feelings create a vibration. So we've talked about this a couple of times. I don't like to repeat things over and over, but that's where you learn. But anyway, so you have a thought, and thoughts create an emotion, and emotion creates that feeling in your body, which is creating a vibration, which is creating a frequency. So in the subconscious worlds that I work in neuroplasticity and the science of your brain, when we talk about your brain and feelings, your feeling is creating ultimately that frequency that is universal. So meaning that if you believe in the theory that we are all connected, you know that your thoughts are not local, your emotions are not local, like how you feel can impact somebody else. Like for instance, I don't know about you, but have you ever been like waiting in a line, and it's like customer service line, and somebody up at the front of the line is really, really angry, and they're getting explosive and loud. They may start using vanity words, like they may curse. Um, but all of a sudden, even though you're 10 people back and away from this person and you don't even know what this problem is, you feel their energy and it doesn't feel good. You may not be one of those people, right? But that's what it is. The feeling is creating a frequency that you know, depending on who you are, you may or may not be able to pick up on. Like you may visually only be able to see that person getting angry, but some of us out here can also feel that energy. So feeling is the frequency. So frequency is kind of the universal, the math language. Like they say that math is the universal language. Well, feelings are the universal language when it comes to like energy. So feelings are super, super important. And when we think about gratitude, what you may or may not realize is that gratitude has the same frequency, as in something that you can measure electromagnetically, that you measure, and it has the same frequency as love. So gratitude and love are both 540 megahertz. So when you think about the emotions that you may be feeling, when you want logically to feel gratitude, but in your body isn't responding that way. There's a cognitive dissonance. There is a gap between what you're thinking and you're feeling. Now, your thoughts ultimately create your feelings. But what I'm really pointing to is that you may be trying to trick your brain, but your body, you know how that book is The Body Keeps Score. Your body also is controlled by your subconscious, which is 95% of your brain, but it's the unconscious part. And that's different than your conscious part, your logical part, the 5% of your brain. So your 5% of your brain, I'm going to state this a different way. The 5% of your brain, your analytical brain may say, oh, I need, I should, I must. Those words need, feel, need, should, must are analytically saying that you should feel guilty. And so you are essentially in that scenario telling your brain like a command to your subconscious to feel gratitude. But if you really don't believe it in your brain, the subconscious part of your brain really knows that that's not really what you're intending. Your body isn't going to respond. If you feel forced, even if the force is coming through your own cause, your body doesn't always respond. Now, I want to take a moment here and just pause because you can cultivate essentially any emotion. I do this often with like hypnosis. We do something called anchoring, and in anchoring, you take a moment, often when you're sitting with your client, away from a situation, and you have them recall a memory, and then you anchor that memory and that feeling with like a tick of your body. So whatever that may be, maybe it is squeezing your index and your thumb together, maybe it is scratching your shoulder, right? You anchor some type of touch with your body to a feeling and a memory, and this allows you in a different moment. So let's say that you are afraid of a speaking and you have a speaking engagement coming up. And maybe you come to see me for hypnosis so that you can feel more confident in your speaking and that you can kind of program your subconscious brain to have a successful speech, right? So that may be something that you come to me for. But in your past experiences, you have felt your heart popping, and just going wild and crazy. Your hands are getting clammy and sweaty. Your tongue all of a sudden feels like sandpaper and is dry. You feel yourself like unable to swallow, and you're just in this state of fear. And this may be what you've experienced in the past, but in this future event, you want to have a very successful speech. So you might come to me and be like, hey, I really want to have a successful speech. Let's do hypnosis. This is what I want to experience. This is what I want to have happen. We sit down, I work with your subconscious, I create a story for your subconscious, blah. Subconscious, your brain is reprogrammed, and then I may anchor at the end. So anchor is like after you've come out of your hypnosis, I may have you recall a time in your life where you have felt really confident, where you have felt really strong and empowered, and I may anchor that emotion in with a body movement. And so when you get up on stage and all of a sudden your heart is starting to beat really fast and you're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, you can do that body movement and to recall that anchor and bring forward what we programmed so that you can feel the emotions that you want to feel, confident in this case. So you can cultivate any emotion. You can do it through hypnosis. You can do it through your own just recalling a memory. Like, for instance, if anyone has ever had a child and you went to Lamaze classes and you know that you're going to be in this pain, what do they ask you to do? They ask you to recall a time when you felt really peaceful, right? So you can cultivate any emotion by pulling a past memory up and recalling it and living in that moment, essentially recalling a past moment and living it. The difference really is you're using your conscious part of your brain, the 5%, the analytical part of your brain, to do that. And so in this situation, when we're talking about gratitude, it is working in the reverse direction for us because conscious part of your brain, your subconscious part of your brain is basically pulling up memories that you're not analytically aware of that is telling you, I don't really feel grateful for this. But your analytical brain is telling you, yeah, you need to. And so there's just this dissonance between those two. And so I'm just here because one of the most important things is the relationship you have with yourself. And so, there is that saying out there, fake it till you make it. And that has value to it. I'm not discrediting that. But your body is going to tell you what your underlying hidden thoughts are based on how it is responding. Okay? So pause that, repeat it, and process it. Your body is going to respond based on its past programming. Even if you're sending a direct command for it to do otherwise, this is habitual. You have habitual emotions that arise in your body. And so at the time, you may not feel grateful. And you could use the analytical words of saying, I am grateful. And if your body doesn't feel it, then you're not really speaking the universal language. You can say the words, and the words are going to have its own set of frequency. But what your body is putting out to the universe and how you're really feeling, the stronger emotion. So let me repeat that because maybe that wasn't something that you had understood before. But if you had to put on a scale words and emotions, and the universe is going to read that, it's going to measure it, then emotions are going to outweigh, they're going to be stronger than what your analytical thoughts are. And so feeling gratitude is what really creates all of those amazing benefits that I listed before. The improved mental, emotional, physical health, the better sleep, who knows? You may even have better sex. I don't know. But the feeling is what is really creating those benefits. And if you're at a point right now where you just truly aren't having those feelings, even if you mentally have decided to, it's okay. No judgment. It's okay. I mean, and that's why that statement was populated, fake it till you make it. It has the same concept because you can train your brain just like you can use a past memory to pull up an emotion. So you can train your brain over time to incorporate the feelings of gratitude with the word. You can associate those. But right now, different things are coming up for you. And so there may just be a time when it's icky. Know that. But what I really want to talk to you about is not to have gratitude forced. And so what I really mean to say is that Brene Brown did an episode on this once, and I remember listening to it. It may be like a few years old, or maybe 3 or 4 years old, or may even be longer. I don't know. But she did an episode one time on false positivity and how our culture in the United States is really moving to that. And that's kind of what I want to speak about today. Like, your emotions are meant to be felt. All emotions are neutral. How you interpretate them is really what happens to create your frequency and expand or contract those emotions. And so if something happens to you, if some unwanted event happens to you, if some circumstance happens to you that you perceive and interpret as negative, even if nobody else does, and even if everybody does, it matters how you perceive it. You may not feel gratitude at that time. You may be mad, you may be hurt, you may be shamed, you may have whatever emotion you have. And so I'm here to tell you that that emotion is coming up for you for a reason. And so if you come in with this attitude of, oh, I have to be grateful, like I have to be grateful because, being grateful creates all of these positive benefits. It is in accordance with whatever cultural things that you follow or religion that you follow or the spiritual path that you follow. Like if you're forcing it, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid and saying like, "Oh, like I have this huge open wound and I'm just gonna stab a Band-Aid on it and pretend like blood isn't gushing around the Band-Aid." Sorry to be graphic. But you need to feel those emotions. You need to acknowledge them. You need to see what it really wants, that emotion wants, what it really needs from you. And then when you're ready, you can pass that emotion through your body and decide to be grateful, even if you don't feel grateful at the time. So that's like the distinction I want to make is remember to deal with your hurts and your pains. And before you decide to make the cognitive decision that, hey, I'm ready to be grateful. I would really, really suggest doing that because if you're just going to force yourself to feel grateful, and you're not gonna deal with those emotions. Those emotions didn't get a chance to move through your body, and so they're in your body. They're doing what they're doing like a ping pong in your body, hitting your organs, hitting your veins, doesn't know where to go because it's meant to release out of your body. So I am a huge opponent to gratitude. I find myself, especially since gratitude is important to me and it is something that I value, I personally find myself moving towards gratitude often. And so just a kind of as a side note, gratitude is both an emotion and a mental state. And by that, I mean gratitude is an emotion, which most psychologists would say that it is a state of appreciation. That's not necessarily how I feel about it. That's just my personal viewpoint. You can feel however you want. But gratitude is an emotion as well as a mental state. And by mental state, what I mean is you can train your brain to take whatever you are experiencing and shift it, even if it's something unwanted and negative, to the silver lining or a positive aspect. What I am asking you to do and to consider is not moving that shift, not shifting to that positive gratitude until you've had time to look at your hurt, to look at your pain, to feel it, to understand it, to process it before you shift it. And the other thing I would say to you is to be integral. Separate, put a pause, whatever, put a pin in it, as they say, on the fake it till you make it. What I mean by integral, self-integral, is that you're being authentic to yourself. And so if you choose that you want to feel gratitude and you don't feel it yet, that is still being authentic to yourself because you are making a decision. You are consciously making a choice to allow this, to invite it in. Like if you had a house, your door is open and you're saying, hey, gratitude, you're welcome to visit me today, right? That is a choice. And I'm all for that. I totally, totally support that. But when I'm talking about being integral, self integral, is that it goes back to that if you're really, really feeling pain in your body and your mind, and you're trying to pretend or avoid it because you have this, obligation or duty or this should or this must that says, I gotta move to gratitude, then you're not really being integral to yourself. And, gratitude, the feeling has the same match as love. So if you take the word gratitude and you substitute it for love, the frequency of 540, gratitude and love have the same frequency, 540 megahertz. And you think about it from the perspective of love. Is it loving to ignore your pain? If you are a parent and you saw your child fall down and go back to this open wound, right? They skinned up their elbow or something. Would it be loving to ignore that? Now, every single person is different, and maybe you'd be like, yeah, rub some dirt on it and walk off. Like maybe that is like tough love to you, So obviously, not this example may not speak to every single person, but just thinking about it from the terms of love, like when we look at the metaphor of, you may not feel it at this time, you're faking it till you're making it, but you're opening the door and you're setting the attention to allow yourself to feel gratitude, then in that case, I would say that in my interpretation, that is an act of love towards yourself. Because at this time, you're not saying that this feeling that's going on in your body doesn't exist. You're not avoiding it. You're not ignoring it. You're not trying to shoo it away. You're letting it move through your body. You're letting it exit out the back of your house. You're opening the front door and waiting for that gratitude to come in to cultivate it. So, when we think about gratitude, I'm just really going to quickly touch on this. To have gratitude, first you have to have an awareness around it. So if so if we're going with that forced gratitude, your awareness isn't around the feeling of gratitude. Your awareness is around the logic of being grateful. All right. So the first step is being aware. So if you are to be grateful for something, you might think, okay, well, like I'm really grateful that the sun is shining, right? So you have this awareness logically that the sun is shining, and you decide, well, I should feel grateful for this, right? So that's like one aspect of it. But when you flip it into the other side of it, the feeling side of it, the sun is shining and you're grateful, but you're grateful because it warms your skin and it makes you feel good. You're grateful because like it's making your plants grow and you're just so excited to see your little baby buds, coming out of the soil. So there's differences between thinking and feeling. So first step is really awareness, right? And you can state it however you want, but there's that feeling behind it. Then the second thing is acknowledging it, right? Like, so when you start to feel the shift, you're acknowledging it. And the third is to actually appreciate it. Like it seems so simple. And you can do all those steps in like one kabam. But for those of you that maybe don't feel as grateful, this is like one of the ways to do it. You can be like, oh, like in the sun example, I see the sun, I'm going to decide to be grateful for it. Then you feel it, whether that is, something that you're pulling up from a past memory or something associated with it. And then you're appreciating it, whether it's through your mental thoughts or through your words, right? So that's what is creating the benefits for you. I also just wanted to say really quickly, because I find this really interesting and I love kind of just the spiritual aspects of things, but gratitude is associated with your heart chakra. And so when you think about what blocks gratitude, a psychologist in general, you can find plenty of articles on this, trust me. They say that envy, materialism, narcissism, cynicalism, that is all stuff that blocks it. But I'm just going to add in here my own personal note for what blocks gratitude is that not being integral with yourself, as in you're feeling pain or you're feeling hurt and you're not allowing yourself to feel that and hurt, and I really do think that that actually is what is partially, not in every situation, but is partially contributing to not feeling the gratitude, right? Because here's the thing about it. Um, you know, in the spiritual work and the stuff that I do, um, we summarize all emotions into like two primary emotions. One is love, and you'd think the other one is hate, but it's fear. So, and again, you don't have to subscribe to this, but if you think about like you have two poles of emotions, love and fear. And there's all of these variants, like a spectrum that can swing you like a pendulum from one to the other. So, like, for instance, fear may show up as hate, but a lesser degree of hate is frustration. So, right, there's these pendulums of emotions that swing you to let you know your barometer of where you are on that spectrum. But if you classify it, and you can classify it down to whatever you want. It's your world. You do what works for you. But when you look at gratitude, this isn't like in a lot of my speeches, I talk about, why are you limiting yourself? It's not either or, it's both and. This isn't one of those situations. When it comes to your emotions, it is you are feeling A or you are feeling B. Okay. And so, you can, taking it down to those two that I mentioned, you can decide to feel love or you can decide to feel fear, but they can't coexist at the same time because they're polar opposites. Do you see what I'm saying here? So gratitude works the same way. If you are in envy and materialism and narcissism and any of these contracting smaller types of energy frequencies, you can't at the same time be in gratitude. And so the brain cannot respond to anxiety or to fear or to whatever is coming up for you, whether it's the shame of I should feel this way and gratitude at the same time. It has to make a choice. It's either or. So one of the things that's really kind of nice about gratitude, because I love to do things that are in a higher frequency, you may be the same way, is that if you can, whether it is because you are consciously making the choice and allowing it, that's the key word, allowing, not forcing, and you're allowing gratitude to come in for you, or you're actually feeling gratitude, then you can't, there isn't space within your body to have the other conflicting polar opposite emotion. Now, that isn't to say our brains aren't, trained to have multitasking and we can't flip from thought to thought to thought to thought, and every thought creates different emotions. So you can be on an emotional roller coaster with all of your thoughts, creating all of these different emotions. We're not getting into that. But if you think about the word, or the statement that people say, like, I can't forgive. And you may or may not have heard this statement before, but people often in the coaching industry, like me, will say, well, when you choose not to forgive, it is like drinking the poison and taking the poison in your own body and then expecting the other person to die. And the reason we say that, it all boils back down to the energy in your body. Because to choose not to forgive, what emotion are you feeling then? You're not feeling love. You're not feeling gratitude, which is that higher frequency of your 540 megahertz. You're going to be feeling something else, whatever that may be for you. That may be anger, that may be hate, that may be just pain, hurt, whatever it is that you want to use in your example. And that has a different frequency, that has a different vibration, and it's in your body. And like I mentioned, like a ping pong, it's bouncing around your body, and you're saying, I'm not going to let go of it. I'm not going to let go of it because this person doesn't deserve it, right? In the meantime, that energy is in your body doing the damage. The other person could be moving on and having the best day of their life and be unknowingly unaware of what you are actually feeling and going through. And so I think about this the same way with like gratitude. You can choose not to be in gratitude. I'm not here to tell you you have to live in gratitude. Choose a different emotion. It's up to you. It's your body, it's your mind, and you are the person in charge of what you want to think and feel. Okay? So I would, as a person who generally cares about people and wants people to have a vibrant, wonderful life filled with joy, and gratitude is associated with joy. Like, I want this for myself. I want this for you. And if you are on board with that type of thing, I would definitely suggest to you, give you unwanted advice, if you will, to allow gratitude to come in, but not to force it, because that's a difference. So if there's anything else I want to say is that, how do you be grateful for challenges and hardships and unwanted circumstances? Now, I am not a licensed therapist. I am not here to go dive into deep trauma. Okay. That is not, that is not my skill set. But what I can do is I can talk to you just about my own personal experiences. Like, for instance, on one of my child's seizures, I've talked about this before, that's why I'm going to share it again. Right. On one time, my child had a seizure and she stopped breathing. And the consequences were severe for her. And she was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, that was a time where I may have felt gratitude that she pulled through, but there were a lot of other focuses going on in my brain. I was focusing on other things. I was focusing on like how much she lost because of this, like her ability to think, her ability to move, her ability to just eat foods. That's where my attention was. That's what I was focused on. And I wasn't able at that moment when I was thinking about those things and creating this anxiety and fear, I wasn't able to feel gratitude in that moment. Right. And you could be going through so many things. Like, maybe you lost your job. Maybe you didn't get the promotion. Maybe you had a fight with one of your best friends. Maybe there was a hurtful statement that somebody said to you, right? It doesn't matter what your circumstances was. If it is in your brain, something that you did not interpretate as positive and that was unwanted for you, you may not feel gratitude at that time. And so, you may feel very defensive or angry towards people that are giving you the message of just being gratitude, like you should be in gratitude, right? So that's what I just want to take a step back and think about. If you've had one of those moments, if you're having one of those moments right now, sometimes in the moment of what you're feeling, whatever you're focusing on is going to contribute to all of the emotions that you are not only feeling, but available to feel. So your thoughts and what you pay attention to is super important. Your thoughts create your experience. And so it's very natural for, if your thoughts are thinking about, this is awful, I can't believe this happened to me, that your experience of what's going on not only in your emotions and in your body, but around you is associating and pulling in that. And so I would just tell you, if you are going through something where you can't find gratitude in the situation, there is no silver lining. A lot of that happens to deal with what you're going through, what you're experiencing, and what you're thinking about right now. And I would also tell you that feel your feelings and know that somewhere in there, there's a lesson for you. And sometimes the lesson is just about letting go. Like, for instance, um, whether you believe in God or if you're a universe, God, universe, source, whatever it is that you believe in, sometimes when the universe is sending us a message or God is sending us a message, whoever it is for you, and you're not receiving it, and it escalates to something super unwanted having, there's a lesson there because you didn't let go. And so because you didn't let go along the smaller points and it got so large and something huge and unwanted happened, then there's this, oh, well, I have to let go because now I have no control. The universe stepped in and made me let go. And maybe that's not your perspective of it in this moment or even 10 years after that moment, but I would tell you, just from not only my own experience, but working from other people, from being guided by other people, from just life lessons, that sometimes things happen because we didn't let go. We needed to learn a lesson, and that ultimately that lesson, whether it's going to be later, is going to be that silver lining. And we can't always see it in the moment. That's why they say, like, hindsight is so valuable, right? We can't always see things in the moment. And I'm not trying to discount anything that you are feeling or experiencing. I'm just letting you know that sometimes in the moment, gratitude isn't available to you. And here are some of the reasons why. So, And just if you are going through a difficult moment and it's maybe on a smaller scale, such as, you and your best friend got in an argument and it's painful right now, just know that there's a lesson there and something can be learned and you guys can grow from that. Both of you, the other person, you in general can just grow. And when you grow, it just, many scientists and many neuroscientists have said that the point of us being here on earth is to grow and evolve, and whatever stops growing and evolving dies, right? So I mean, I had this conversation with my neighbor as a side note. She's a couple of years into retirement, and she's getting to this point in her life where she's not learning anything new and she's not doing anything new. And, she feels like she's just withering away and dying. And I'm like, well, go learn something, because when you learn something, you're growing and you're evolving, right? And so if you take that philosophy that certain scientists in neuroplasticity and neuroscience have said, that, we're here to grow and to evolve, everything that happens to you, whether you perceive it as positive or negative, is a teacher for you and it's teaching you a lesson. And you can decide what you want to get out of it and what you want to learn from it. Because there's definitely been painful things in my life that it took the hindsight. It may have taken 5 years for me to be able to turn around and see, wow, like this really was for my good. And that's what I actually started this podcast out, is for creating. The podcast originally started out, and it is a huge thread in it, is that, bad things can happen to you that lead to something good. And I've brought in a number of people that I've interviewed, and then we've talked about this. Um, so one of my mentors, Jim Fortin, one of his like favorite people he ever interviewed on his podcast was Bob Catharo. And Bob Catharo was this, well-performing, I'll even go venture and say famous, celloist, and he got MS. And in that process, he was no longer able to do what he loved. And the disease was really just crippling him and taking away his life super, super fast. And he has his own podcast and you can follow him. He's written a book about this, right? And so, he overcame MS and is no longer really has these symptoms of MS anymore. And he's back to playing cello, right? And so, like, this is an example, right? Somebody experienced something that was challenging or hardship to them at the time, but now he's creating all of these beautiful life lessons that he's sharing with other people and helping them if they've ever experienced this or they've ever gone through something similar. He's helping people all across the world. And so, I mean, a lot of my podcast was created along this theme, like along this line, that something can be really, really hard for you, you know, and at the time it can be unbearable, but then later other things open up to you. You've gone past it, you've gone through it. Maybe you can help somebody else, maybe it helps you in the next stage be able to handle the next, circumstance that comes along your way. So gratitude can come, much later on certain things, and not to force, but to allow. That's the overall message. So I want to thank you so much for staying with me to the end. I am sending you so much love, and you matter.